name is Ken Wyatt. I was an electronics technician in the Navy for 14 years.
So, what ships were you on?
I was on the USS Karen, DD 970, which was a destroyer. I went to the USS Eisenhower, CVN 69. Never actually got to see any underway time on that because it was in the yards. And then the USS Arleigh Burke, DDG 51, which is another destroyer.
What was one of your favorite places to dock?
Can't really pinpoint one. My very first port visit ever in the Navy was St. Thomas, which was amazing. But since there, been to a lot of places that I actually would love to go back to. Mykonos, Greece, Malaga, Spain, all up and down both coasts of Italy. That's pretty much, I mean, there's a lot of places in the Med. Can't really pinpoint one particular favorite one. I liked them all.
Okay. You said you were an electronic technician, so what exactly did you do in the Navy?
My specific job was, in the beginning, it was communications. I was an HF technician, working on the radio transmitters and receivers for high frequency equipment. And then towards just before the middle of my the time I was in, I went to school for IFF, identification, friend or foe, and from that point basically turned into a radar technician.
Why do you feel everyone should do one stint in the military?
Because it's one of those things that it just kind of teaches you a lot of discipline. Kind of civil service type thing. But a lot of people don't ever get the discipline and, learning of, things that they do might not make sense, but it makes sense in the grand scheme of things. And it's something that people can learn, obviously, in the military.
What made you decide to join the military, specifically Navy?
I was at a point in my life where I knew I wasn't prepared for college. And it was something that I definitely needed to change. There was a lot of things going on. And I needed to basically change my life around. And growing up, my parents had a boat. We always went fishing out on the Chesapeake Bay. And I absolutely loved being on the water. And so wanting to change, turn my life around, and being on the water, Navy made sense. And my dad was in the Army, and he said, well, if you're thinking about the military, whatever you do, don't join the Army.
What made you feel like the electronic technician would be a good suit for you?
Didn't really know. Ultimately, I like fixing things, making things work as good as they can. Before I joined, I talked to people, and they said that electronics technician, people that were in the Navy that I talked to said that electronics technician was a good rate. Started doing a little research and realized that I could do something like that on the outside. So I almost wasn't an ET. Basically, when you go to school, you're in advanced electronics school, which from that school, halfway through it, you can choose whether to be an ET or a fire controlman. Luckily, I was high enough in the class to where I could actually choose which rate I wanted to be. And with all the research I was doing and all the equipment, I just thought electronics technician was the best suit.
Did anything significant happen while you were in?
Nothing that I was specifically involved in. One of my deployments on the Arleigh Burke, we were tasked to shadow a hijacked boat. I guess the pirates hijacked the boat off of the coast of Africa. It was like a huge tanker, and we were tasked to basically shadow it, make sure it didn't get out of a certain area. That was about the only thing that happened. We actually got to shoot our 5-inch gun at the, and kind of as like warning shot type thing, but that was basically the only significant issue that I was actually involved in.
What are some of the biggest upsides and downsides to being in the Navy or military in general?
To me, one of the biggest upsides is the people. You're on, for example, the Arleigh Burke was 505 feet long, and you're on a ship with 200 and anywhere between 200 and 250 other people from everywhere, all over the country. So it's just like a big giant melting pot of people, different statuses in life or whatever you want to call it, but it's just the people is what makes the Navy fun. The downsides, probably family time. If there's a lot of, when you're getting ready for a deployment, there's a lot of underways, a lot of little 2-3 week little underways, where you leave and come back and you're in for a weekend, you go out again for another 2 or 3 weeks. That's probably the biggest downside is the family time, because if you have a family, you really don't, during certain times, there's really not a lot of time spent with family.
What do you think is the best mindset to have when you join the military, regardless of branch?
Basically, don't go in with an attitude. Go in kind of knowing that there is an end goal. The whole point of boot camp is to break you down and get all of the so-called bad habits out of you, so that you're not a liability in a certain situation. So they break you down, kind of try to get you into the right mindset, and then from that point, because essentially you got to be able to be counted on. If you're, like in my case, I was in the Navy, so if something happens out in the middle of the ocean, you have to know that the guy next to you, whether you get along with him or not, you can count on him in a certain situation. And that's pretty much the whole point of boot camp, is to get it to the point where hey, we may not get along, but if something happens, like a fire on the ship, where everybody's got to work together, that you're going to be able to count on it because of all this training, all of your training, and everything else.
What is a normal day like underway?
There really is no normal day underway. The structure is there, but there's a lot of things that, there's different, you stand watches at different times. The only thing pretty much structured is when you wake up, when you're supposed to go to bed, and when you eat. There's always different things to do underway. Um, there's different evolutions that have to take place. Unreps or underway replenishments where you take on fuel, stores, all kinds of things. Because a lot of the things that we do, you normally don't. I mean, you can do everything in port, but a lot of times we'll just pull alongside a ship, a supply ship, and we'll basically take on fuel while we're underway. Just string the hose from the supply ship to our ship and fill our tanks. There's a lot of different evolutions that can take place. We could do a lot of helicopter operations, that sort of thing. Underway is not really. You kind of have to make your own fun underway. Like, I don't know where we found them, but we had these industrial strength zip ties that were about maybe an inch and a quarter wide and about maybe 18 inches to 24 inches long. And apparently we decided to, as we were just sitting there, one guy decided to break one out and kind of smack it across the top of our legs. And I mean, it wasn't exactly fun, but it's something to break up the time, and I guess kind of increase the camaraderie of the people you're working with. That's, like I said before, it's the people that make your time in the Navy fun, and just kind of bonding with everybody in different ways and finding things to do. And it wasn't exactly probably the smartest thing to do, but at the time it was okay. I also got to do something underway that a lot of people don't normally do. My equipment is at the very top of the mast, and in order to go aloft, normally you're in port with all the engines shut down and everything, with all the radars. You have to shut the radars down so that there's no radiation. But while we were working up for a deployment, we found an issue with my equipment. As we were transiting across the Atlantic, we actually got the part in to repair that equipment, and since it was a pretty I guess important piece of equipment, they wanted it up as soon as possible, and they didn't want to wait until we pulled into port in a week and a half, 2 weeks. They wanted it up as soon as possible. So we got the part on board, and we waited until the seas were calm and shut everything down, and I actually went up the mast while the ship was underway in the middle of the ocean, which was pretty amazing. You're up there doing work, and then you decide to take a look around and everything, and there's no land as far as you could see. The water's nice and calm, almost like glass. It was an amazing experience. Something I'll never forget.
So you're in the process of finishing a sleeve of tattoos, all symbolizing your time in the Navy. Why was that important to you, and what do they all mean?
It's important because I'm pretty proud of the fact that I was in the Navy for 14 years. I may not have got out on mean, I didn't get out on bad terms, but I may not have got out. I may have gotten out before I wanted to. Um, but everything I've done in the Navy, I'm pretty proud of. We've, I've been to South Africa. I've, crossed the equator. I just wanted to do something that had meaning. I've always wanted a sleeve, and I figured if I can get something that actually has meaning to me, then it's something I'm going to like, instead of just getting a bunch of random things that don't have meaning. So it's something that has a lot of meaning to me, and the symbols are technically a lot of traditional symbols, but maybe not done in the traditional way. Essentially, when I cross the equator, it's like that's King Neptune with his trident. King Neptune, Poseidon, it's pretty much the same god. They're both gods of the sea, but one's Greek and one's Roman. I've got a swallow with a banner. It's got the hull numbers of the ships. The swallow traditionally symbolizes doing 5,000 miles at sea. So, but I wanted to incorporate something that had all the different hull numbers of the ships, and my tattoo artist actually came up with that, so I actually like that part of it. The turtle, the sea turtle, is another symbol for when you cross the equator, they call you a shellback, and that's what the sea turtle represents. My rating badge, the electronics technician symbol. The anchor is just a symbol of crossing the Atlantic, and I've done that 6-7 times. And the compass rose is just a symbol of so that basically sailors can find their way home. So everything that I've got has specific meaning to me, as well as traditional symbols of representing what I've done in the Navy. And it's just something that I felt it's definitely important to me, an important time in my life, and something that when I do actually, I guess, lose my memory of everything, I can kind of maybe look down and remember things that happen.
So, in the military, everyone kind of, you make a lot of friendships, and they sort of seem a lot different than normal friendships. What makes that different than everything, normal friendships?
Well, I mean, it's definitely weird, because it's more like, it's not necessarily just friends, it's more like a family. People that I've served with, you can, I mean, you'll do anything for them, they'll do anything for you. And it's a bond that you can't really describe. It's just something that is never going to be broken. It's one of those things that, like I said, if I need something, I know who I can call. If they need something, they know they can call me, and it's almost like a brotherhood, and It's definitely a strong family type bond. You're out in the middle of the ocean. You're, living 6 months at a time, within 505 feet of 250 other people. You guys go through a lot together. You see each other on a normal basis. It's something that is really can't describe the meaning to a lot of different people about it.
Is there any final things that you can think of, or maybe advice to potential people who maybe want to join the Navy or military?
Like I said, don't go in. If you decide to join, don't go in with, I know everything. I'm the biggest badass there is, because those are the ones that the drill instructors and those are the ones that they make, I guess, teacher's pet. They single those out, and because those are the ones that you kind of have to watch out for and make sure that they're not just going with an open mind. Know that there's going to be probably a million things that do not make sense to you, but there is a reason behind everything that's being done. And know that in the end, it might not make sense at the time, but in the end, everything will kind of make sense. And you'll have that moment of, oh, that's why we were doing everything. And the other part is definitely do your research. Talk to people that have served. And don't take everything that a recruiter tells you as 100% truth. Their job is to get people in the service. Their job is to get a certain amount of people into whatever branch they're in. So they could tell you 75% of what's going to happen, but they're going to leave out the 25%, because they're going to want to make you think that everything you think about the military is 100% true. They're going to leave certain things out. Just definitely do your research, and don't trust the recruiters 100%.